Um, so we're continuing with that question of how would you respond to someone who was like, "Hey, Frank, I kind of want to move to where you live." What would you say?
Um, I think it's a little complicated because like I think oftentimes blackness is looked as some type of like monolithic race, and you don't see the diversity within the race. Specifically being Afro Latino, like I'm coming from a completely different standpoint with the same identity problems as somebody who is African American, but I come from a different culture. So my concerns and my issues might be a tad different than someone who has parents that are born here. You know, some of my aunts and uncles don't even speak English, and so and they struggled because of that. But at the same time, I would tell somebody, come here if you have a plan. I think, I think if you come here with a plan and you get out, that's what I would tell them, you know, and that's my thing, you know. I've made my career here, and I am actually planning on leaving, and because I don't feel safe here, and so I would tell them that I'm like, there are problems, there are struggles, but there's also no safety net in Panama. So if you're poor, that you're not getting any money, and sometimes that that reality, the reality of getting something, appears to be better to someone in a very desperate situation, and they'll deal with the problems that I'm talking about that that have become normalized won't be an issue for them because the alternative is being back home and not having anything. And so which is I also, you know, if I say somebody not come here, they'll say, well, your parents did.
Mhm.
That's why you were able to go to university. That's why we were able to meet Sahar at Columbia University. That's why you were able to become an architect. Like I often think of what my life would have been like if my parents had not come here. So there are pluses to coming to this country. There are good things about this country, but there are horrible things about this country. And I think if you understand that and you explain it to people, which is very hard because a lot of immigrant families think that everybody is rich here and everybody's rolling in it, and you know everybody has like a Cadillac. I don't know why Cadillac is the car they think about, but everybody has a Cadillac. And trying to break down the reality of what life is like here is very difficult sometimes. So when people ask me, I'm like, all right, just come over, and I let them see for themselves whether they can deal with the reality of being in their body, because back home it's less about color and more about economics. So they will experience being black for the first time, and that is something that they have to get over, because a lot of my cousins back home, they don't really get the whole Black Lives Matter. They understand colorism from like before, and they understand colorism sometimes, but the whole importance of Black Lives Matter, they don't get it because they're not here. They don't feel it. um, so I would tell them, come and experience it. I don't think many could really take it if you're not born into it. It's difficult. But yeah, my advice would make your money, get your career, and then go somewhere else. Yeah.
I don't want to follow anything you've said.
Why?
Like, that's a great place to end. Thank you.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think 5 years ago I would have had a completely different answer than I do right now. Right now, I don't know if I could, in good conscience, like tell somebody it's a good idea to walk into this mess. Since like we just it's just the level. I have nothing like decent or eloquent to say about it. But at the same time, if you have a plan and you know what it is that you are coming to do, then that's one thing. But I think gone are the days of like, we're going to go to America and see what happens, which makes me feel some feels, I think. And it's kind of surprising that it does. But I think if you really want to walk in with your eyes open, knowing that we do not have healthcare in this country because we are such a racist country that like we cannot fathom doing something for everybody if it means that like there are just fundamental things in I think what it means to be like the other side of that coin of what it means to be American is really hard to tell someone that that might be a good idea without like a job waiting for them. And like I feel terrible saying that, but oh well.
I mean, all of you are expressing like basically different positions that the aunties expressed, right? Like Samina is like, it really depends on your situation. And she kind of said what you were saying, Frank, about like, you know, somebody might say like, you can say that because you live there. But maybe their situation where they come from, they feel it's worse and they take this. And then Derek, you were saying like, you know, yeah, come over if you're willing to like get your butt kicked, right? Like that was necessary. And there's like all this stuff that's gonna, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's gonna come with it, right? Coming, and the things that you have to deal with. And then there's the like, you know, and then there's Hesna's response, like, I think you're crazy. That was her response. uh, like we got to get through this first, meaning that like we have to survive, we have to live, and then we'll see. My last question is you can pull up what I asked you to do a free write and you can look at that or you can speak from your heart or whatever you have on your mind right now. But the last question is, how did you respond to any part of the script or to this, like the entirety of it? You know, and you can, you know, what was your response?
Oh, it's me. Sorry, my brain is still a little bit on the last question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, I can segue into it somehow. Sorry, just I guess because I feel like I was sort of like rambling towards the end, and I wasn't sure where I was going. And I suppose maybe like one of the things that's sort of come up as you all have been talking is like, I guess like, I mean, whatever, it's a complicated question in the UK at the moment because of like Brexit. And so I suppose like when you phrased it as like, I was thinking in terms of the response that people had given in the play as like, so I guess someone coming from outside of the EU, for example, right? Like, and sort of dealing with this, like, obviously there's a different situation, like it's the UK and Ireland have a really different like immigration history, right? In terms of like what your visa and stuff. But I suppose like if we are, I guess, believing in a world without borders, right? If we're like working to make sort of like this movement without borders possible, then hopefully if someone says like, come here, right? Like my response can be yes, if you want, right? And it's sort of like dependent on the context of the person, right? And like I guess should you come, right? It's sort of a question that I don't want to be answering for anyone. But in some sense, this sort of idea of like, well, will it be better than X place the person is coming from is a different question, right? And like, I think one that you can kind of get into some of that. So I think I'm just processing some of that for myself, sort of and what I said, and like, did I say that right? Like, sort of still thinking about that. And I suppose like trying to like situate, I suppose, so now I'm kind of on the free ride of like, you know, what comes up. And so, so one of the things is sort of this question of intergenerational memory, right? And sort of like, I guess for me, it's a bit more with like the older generation of my aunts and grannies than my parents. That is sort of why I sort of was thinking about what my aunt had said about moving from Ireland to, I guess I've been thinking a little bit about that context as well, and how that's really changed over 50 years. The first line I wrote down in this free write was, a line that really stuck with me. Maybe it was your mom who said it, everything's the same, or something like, there was a real like that line really like hit me, and I moved me, and I found like very the sort of like the sadness of sort of like being like not in a place that is home, or like the question of where is home, sort of something that I was sort of trying to think about, and like really I suppose that is something that really resonated, and the sort of the excuse me, questions about burial, and sort of like how bodies and people can be celebrated in any time, like that felt like, I guess obviously the title, what is it, Bury Me Here, like that comes at such a beautiful moment, and I think there is just such a like sharpness and starkness to so many of the testimonies, and like just words people have said. It's so sorry, man is running in. It's late. I'm sorry. I'll stop. But yes, everything is the same. Is my final note.
I mean, that part was really challenging for me to hear. Like when I was having the conversations, like I think the most challenging listening exercise for me was listening to my mom. Mostly because like I don't know, I was expecting certain answers because like, you know, I'm like, oh, she always says this, but the what I found myself like inside of me, like kind of um, responding and feeling it was really challenging was when I asked like, so is this home? And it was immediate no, right? Like she was like, no. But then she's like, nowhere is home. She kept saying, nowhere is home. But then she's like, but here is my priority. I'm like, okay, that's so big. Like, what is it? And I think even for like Samina's daughter too, to like hear her mom immediately say like, this is not home, it was really hard, and it's really challenging to hear that. Yeah.
For me, like I had three themes that I directly identified with. One being home, right, and one being survival, and the other being identity. Home, you know, where is your home? I think that's like the constant immigrant question. You know, what makes this place your home? And so belonging to two places, like I said before, but not really belonging, not knowing where you belong. You know, I'll use my aunts as an example. You know, my mother, my dad, you know, they went to night school, went to university. My dad and my mom, they got their masters, did their PhD, and so they went one direction. And then my aunts went a completely other direction, where they isolated themselves in like their community enclaves where that only spoke Spanish. So like their options became very limited. And so for me, the identity of whether you try to become more Americanized or whether you decide to cling to what you remembered home was like. And so that came up to me. And then survival. Like nobody wants to leave their country, right? That's their home. So if somebody's here, they left their country 9 times out of 10 because of a dire situation. And even when they come here, it becomes a dire situation because there's a language barrier, there's a cultural barrier, there's an othering that happens when you come here. So you know you face so many battles walking through your day, and all those battles might still be better than what you'd be facing back at home. And so that everyday survival thing doesn't stop for, I think, the immigrant, or even for the children of immigrants, because as a child of immigrants, you know, outside, like my parents always say, like, you know, outside was America. Inside is Panama. Like, this is the Republic of Panama, and we're the Queen. and so, you know, I had a very different upbringing inside. And then when I go outside, it's America. And it's like, you know, I remember one day my sister came home and she's like, you know, my mother had asked her to do something. And she's like, I'm an American. I have rights. And she's like, you know, and the Constitution says, she was like, no, 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 no. The Constitution ends at this door. So, so here you have a young woman, a young child struggling with identity, right? And then there's um, uh, the voting thing. Like, my mother was here for 25 years before she voted, and she didn't become a full citizen until 25 years in her being in this country. And I think that was because I think you're still holding on sometimes to who you knew that you were, and you're trying to come to terms with this new identity that you're forming. And I don't feel she really believed and felt she was an American until she voted. And the first person she voted for was Barack Obama. I think he inspired her to like get up her tuchus and go and vote finally. And she, she didn't know how to do anything. I went with her to the polls, and I showed her how to like pull a lever and like, how to do. And so those things that we take for granted became so special to her, and it connected her with her American identity. And so those, when you're talking about the presidents, I was like, this could have been my aunts talking about this. My mother's talking about Clinton, and they say Papa Bush or Baby Bush. And then my other aunt's going, get? Like having no idea what we're talking about, So I really connected and resonated with those types of conversations. So yeah.
Wow. Something that Dara said made me think of, there's a Candor Net musical called Zorba. And the first number is called Life Is, and the first lyric of that is, life is what you do while you're waiting to die. This is how the time goes by. And, it's a Greek show, but there's something that's so, because it's not down, it's not bitter, it's not sad, it's just so matter of fact. This is how the time goes by. And that, I think, because I was like, I wrote a bunch of crap that I realized that that's just how it distilled, is like, there are those kinds of stories that are so incredibly universal because of their specificity, that can be, because I knew that the actual stories were gonna like blow me away. Like I knew that, but there were a couple of things in that, like, who are women responsible for as well. And there's that like, oh, fuck it, I'll just do it kind of thing that, like, I think a lot of women deeply understand, in that, like, no, I got it, it's fine. And it's the same kind of thing. Like, it's not bitter, it's not sad, it's just what is happening and what we have to do to get to the next thing. And there was so much of that. And there's like incredible, and that there is incredible joy in that. And that there is incredible, like there's a lot of really exciting life in that, but it's knowing exactly where you are. It's not having any idea, any like, I can't find the word that I want. It's very annoying. But it's going in with your eyes open and knowing exactly what's happening, and life is what you do while you're waiting to die.
Thank you. I mean, it's like when I reread the script over and over, like, every time I'm like, oh yeah, she did say that. And I think the thing that always like that strikes me is how each of the women, they're like, I didn't plan on coming here. I got married, right? And like Nasreen auntie, like throwing the shade on uncle. Like she's like, I think he's got a problem, right? Like, and then like my mom's like, your dad wouldn't come here if I didn't come. Like he can't do anything by himself. And Samina too, she's like, she corrected me. She's like, I didn't decide. It's not like I decided. Yeah. And they did. They lived their lives, right? They lived their lives. Thank you so much. I don't want to take more of your time. Thank you so, so, so much for doing this.
Thank
Um,
you.
oh,
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Thank you for including me.
I'm
It's an
so
honor.
happy. I'm so happy you can make it. And I will share the links with you when they're, when they go up, and you can hear how the other readings went and how others reflected,
Wow.
and what they shared. Because I think you'll find that part also really interesting and amazing. So I hope you all have a wonderful evening. And Darg, I hope you have a wonderful night's rest. Yeah. And I hope everyone stays safe and healthy, and
Yes.
until we meet again.
Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah,
Have a
nice to meet
wonderful
you.
day, night. Be safe.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Sahar.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.